Hi, I'm Bill Kolpak, a senior at Carl Sandburg High School. I'm at Stellwagen Farm, joined by Orland Park Mayor Dan McLaughlin to discuss the Open Lands Commission. Mayor McLaughlin, my first question is, can you explain how and why the Open Lands Commission was established?
Sure. Quite frankly, Orland Park was going through a boom of housing projects and commercial development, and I hated to see all this great looking property lost forever. Didn't want every inch of Orland Park built on. So the idea was, how do we save some property? We already buy parks in neighborhoods, and we're surrounded, fortunately, by forest preserve districts, so it makes for a great quality of life in Orland. But how do we save some of these properties before they're all built on? And that's the idea of the Orland Park Open Lands Commission, was to figure out how do we start saving these, identify which ones are worth saving, and that's kind of how it got started.
So right now we're at the Stellwagen Farm. Can you please elaborate on the history of the farm as well as other farms the commission has purchased?
Well, the Open Lands Commission, since we started, has purchased not quite, but almost 300 acres. And of those, three pieces of property are farms. So Stellwagen Farm is the biggest one. It's 60 acres. It was started, a family farm started in 1860. So it's got a lot of history here. You can see there's a lot of outbuildings, so it's really kind of a neat opportunity for us to not only save the open space, but save a historic family farm and make it available to the kids to see how farming was done. Eventually we want to do a living history farm here. So that was kind of the idea behind this piece of property before it was sold for development. I mean, this really right now could be hundreds of households or hundreds of rooftops, and this is just so much nicer, you know?
So in total, are those 300 acres just a farmland, or are there additional properties that make up the Open Lands Commission?
No, there was 3 farms, this one and the Schumach farm on 139th and 110th Avenue. Then there was the Boley farm right in the middle of town on 151st Street, which is another 100-year-old family farm. And, but then there's several other small parcels that just made sense to buy before they were built on. But recently we bought, it was a landscape company that was between Southwest Highway and LaGrange Road, about 140th, I guess. That we are going to turn into a nature center. And not only a nature center to kind of educate people about nature and what's out in Orland Park and how to identify species of plants and animals, but there's also a wetland to the north of the nature center. So the wetland used to attract hundreds of egrets and blue herons. And for the most part, you don't see them as much anymore, not because of construction, but more because their perches have all collapsed. They were all trees that were dead, and as they rotted away and fell, the perches are gone. So one of our goals will be to create and install artificial perches and try and attract those herons and egrets back to Orland.
So how is the commission funding all of these projects, and who is contributing to these funds?
When we created the Open Lands Commission, we started out by coming up with some sources of funding, like checking off a change in the water bill where people can add a $20, $50 contribution to the Open Lands Commission as part of your water bill check. We also started the Open Lands Golf Outing. So that's an annual golf outing. It's kind of a community event. It's used for education of the Open Lands Fund as well as raising a little bit of money. And we did several other small things. Well, after the first year and a half or so, we felt pretty good. We did $900,000 we raised. We thought, this is pretty good. Until we went to buy our first piece of property and found that you can't buy a lot of property in Orland Park for $900,000. So the next big step we realized we had to do was go to the public and say, if the public feels as strong as we do about open lands and the quality of life in Orland, then we need to do a bond referendum. So we pushed a $20 million bond referendum. We did some coffees in people's homes to explain the value and the benefits. We did a couple of town hall meetings. We put a brochure out that explained it all. And then the referendum question was on the ballot. And the majority of Orland Park residents, and it was a pretty good majority, agreed that a $20 million bond issue to support the open lands purchases was a good idea for Orland Park. So that $20 million we were able to match up with some grants from either the state or federal government to kind of make that $20 million go even a little bit further by applying for matching grants, where we put in some and then they gave us some. So between our small fundraising efforts, the $20 million bond issue, and some grants we were able to apply for, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit.
Mayor McLaughlin, thank you. This has been a pleasure hearing about the Open Lands Commission, and it's something that makes our community a very special and enjoyable place to live in.
I agree. Thanks.